like this to run all day.
It's not that darker than I was anticipating it being.
Stop fiddling, Mick, and get old.
It is 1605. King James I has been on the throne in England for 2 years, having come down from Scotland. At first his reign went very well. He went hunting, he was very sociable, he tried to please everybody, which, as you may know, isn't easy to do. And then there was a backlash against him, because it was seen that he seemed to be relaxing the persecution of the Catholics. Well, the Catholic lords wanted the reinstitution of their faith, the one true faith, and the backlash continued. Things began to go really wrong. James began to put in Scottish lords and his friends into all these posts in Whitehall. It seemed that favouritism and corruption were taking over, and there was much unhappiness. Today, James then commissioned the King James Bible. Welcome one and all to East Riddleston Hall in this beautiful Yorkshire, on its plateau looking down at the River Aire. I, as you will see, am the cook there, and proud of it. My master John Rishworth, well, he's very young to be ruling this fine estate. He inherited from his father, who died a long time ago, but John now rules, and we all really respect him. His wife Anne, well, she's young and she manages too, helped by his mother Ellen, which is a good thing because they have 2 young children. But all us staff, well, we think that John Rishworth is quite the best of all of the people around here who run estates. We would do anything for John Rishworth. He's just told us that we're going to have a wedding, that his best friend, Stephen Wright, is going to marry Jane Clay, and that we are going to host this wedding. It's going to be a big affair. And now he's told me that it is going to be on November the 5th. November? I ask you, November for a wedding? We'll have no fresh fruit left out there. There'll be no fresh vegetables out in the garden anywhere. Oh, I don't know. The meat, well, that will be in store and that will be getting used up. Certainly for the wedding. Oh dear, what are we to do? And servants? My girls, some of them are too young. And certainly some of them are too slovenly to be serving aristocracy at a wedding. Oh, they'll need a lot of training. They'll need some new clothes too, and some of them will need a good scrub. You should see them. Oh dear, I don't know what a carry-on it's going to be. Oh dear. Right. And where can we put them all? Where can we put them all? Oh, the hall hasn't got any rooms big enough to host that many guests. It'll have to be the Great Barn, I guess. The Great Barn. It's a magnificent building, is the Great Barn. It's got these beautiful oak beams, arches across it, and magnificent posts. When the sun comes through, well, it looks like a cathedral. It will be a very fine place to host a wedding, I think. Of course, I have to get rid of the hay, but yes, I think the Great Barn, yes, eventually. And of course, I'm going to have to order more wine, and I'm going to have to order things from oranges from Spain, and oh dear, where's the butler, where's the gardeners? All of these things to organise in such a short time for this November wedding. Yes, the Great Barn will do. It will be fine. We'll just sweep the floor and strew more hay, and it will be fine. But now, let me take you back to 1604, back to London, where Jack Wright, who is Stephen Wright's cousin, is going to a meeting. He's going to a meeting with his Catholic friends down there in London. Well, I think that Guy Fawkes is going, that soldier of fortune, Guy Fawkes, I think he's going to be there as well. And his servant is down there waiting at the stairs to take everybody up to this meeting.
Standing here, I tell you. Oh, have you come? If it's food you're wanting, it's over there. If you've got the password, well, I have a password, everybody knows who they are, it's upstairs. Your master's up there, Jack Wright, with his brother, Chris. They're good lads, very good with the sword they are. I'm just a humble servant, don't get paid much. It's not much work now, you see. I was fighting in the Lowland Wars, but James has put a stop to all of that. He's had peace treaties with everybody. Which is sort of good unless you're a soldier of fortune like me, and I'm not in no fortune, which makes it difficult. Anyway, the man in charge seems to be Catesby. Very, very persuasive man he is. Catesby, and the man with the money, well, he says he's got money but he never pays me, is Percy. He says he's related to the Earl of Northumberland, and he might be. Percy's common name in Northumberland. The Earl of Northumberland is a Percy. He has plenty of cash, but he doesn't spend any my way. I think he's funding the whole thing. And then there's some others, Rockwood Winter, who owns this pub. Well, he lives here in the winter when he comes down to London. And Jack and Kit, of course. They've got a brother up in Yorkshire, but he's nothing to do with it. Never met him. And then they've got this new guy. Nobody knows him here because he's been in the Lowland Wars. Mind you, he wasn't on the same side as me. I'm on whichever side pays best. I worked for the Spanish kings for some time, but the Dutchmen paid better, so I worked for them. I'll kill anybody, I'm equal, fair and square, pike, sword, cudgel, hands if I must. But I don't hold with muskets. They take too long to load. Takes minutes. You'll be dead run through with a sword by the time you've loaded the blooming thing. And anyway, it's all to do with black powder, and I don't like black powder. Anyway, this Guido chap, apparently he knew my master. They went to school together in some place in the north, York or somewhere. And yeah, he's supposed to be an explosives expert, whatever one of them is, but he's been in the Lowland Wars for years and years, and nobody knows who he is. But they all know who he is. And anyway, the King's spy master, Lord Cecil, he knows who they all are. I can't see why we have a password at all. It's ridiculous. 2 years ago, they were going to kidnap the king. Well, everybody knew about it. Oh yeah, king's been kidnapped. Is it today? No, it's tomorrow. So they all got arrested. Now the king, he knew him post, so he was very generous. I thought he was very generous. I'd have had him up. You know, anybody betrays me, string them up, that's what I say. But anyway, he didn't. He made them pay a 200 quid fine, which was an enormous sum. I get 2 bob a year. Well, I don't even get that because purse is too tight. Jack could pay me if he got round to it. But they spent so much money on swords. These new swords they've got, I mean, you know, let's be quiet about it. Let's have a password. Let's have a new sword emblazoned with the passion of our Lord. You know, sort of make a clue that you might be using it for some religious purpose. £20 each they cost. I didn't see any of that either. Anyway, black powder, Guy Fawkes, it's all a problem to me. Anyway, they're all plotting up there. Oh, I'm sure that half of them are spies. I think Guy Fawkes is a spy. And if I ever listen in, yep, it's another stupid plot. They're going to blow up the king and the Houses of Lords all at the beginning of the new Parliament. Well, information might be worth something if you've got time, and I've got time, so I'll see if I can do something with the information. I'm sure there's a cue line for the musician, but I've forgotten what it is.
Dish of meat and wine.
Oh, dish of meat wine, sir, that's what he wanted.
Such a week we've had. All of the servants working so hard for this wedding, you would not believe. We swept the great barn, we swept it until it was beautiful. You can keep livestock in it, you know, so they've had to go somewhere. They've gone to other barns and other farms. Who knows where they are now? But it's all clean and we've got new fresh hay strewn across the floor. We sent the children out, some of the village children, we sent them out to pick greenery, whatever you can find in November, which isn't much, and to make wreaths, and so we put hangings all the way along the walls, and we've got hangings and greenery and wreaths. Oh, the Great Hall is looking beautiful, just lovely. And we've got lanterns strewn all the way down the path, so that as you walk up to the hall, you've got all this lovely light, and it is going to be a beautiful wedding, absolutely beautiful. Well, we've been working very hard, as I say, yes. Oh, I managed to find enough table linen, you know, proper table linen that comes down to the floor, not any of this stuff that just is on the top there. And we've managed to get enough platters, enough pewter, metal platters. No more wooden trenchers for this wedding. Proper metal. It's going to be wonderful. Oh yes, absolutely wonderful. And the food, you say? Well, of course. I mean, you can imagine some of the food that you eat. Yes, you can. Yes. I mean, you can go through the usual range of roast beef stuffed with herbs, and then pork roasted beautifully, and mutton from the sheep that were down the road. Yes, fine mutton. Yes. And of course, then you have to come to chicken, glazed chicken, honey glazed chicken. Lovely. And there has to be a swan, a very fine swan. And you take the skin off the swan very carefully, keeping the feathers as intact as you can, and you cook the swan until it's beautifully cooked. And then you put the skin back so that it looks there on the table absolutely amazing. Yes. And you serve it with a sauce you won't have heard of. It's called chaudron sauce. And you make it by taking the guts and the blood and you boil them all up together with vinegar and strong spices, and you get this amazing, tasty sauce to serve with the swan. So we've got all the meats like pork and mutton and beef and lamb, and we've got the swan and the chicken. And of course you have to have a goose, don't you? You have to have a goose and a duck. Not to mention pigeon and doves. all so tender that the meat just falls off them. Absolutely beautiful. Enough there to keep any hungry aristocrat going, yes. And then, well, of course, there's the fish, isn't there? Yes, the fish. The salmon. The roast salmon. And we do the roast salmon with an onion and wine sauce, all very delicate and tasty. And of course there are other fish that we can get around here, with a river down there, you know, there's perch, there's roach. Sometimes we serve eel and sometimes crayfish. What an amazing collection of food it's going to be down these tables. Enough to tempt the most delicate of palates. And what about dessert, you might say? Well, of course, we've got the finest oranges. I managed to get them ordered from Spain. Oh yes, we've got these beautiful oranges. And we do have our own apples and pears, so we have fresh fruit for those that want it. And yes, we make beautiful fruit and herb pies with plums and apples, all very tasty. Not to mention cakes and mince pies. And of course bread, several different kinds of bread. And cheeses, oh yes, you have to have cheeses. We have sorrel cheese, we have mettle cheese, we have marigold cheese, all to go with these different types of bread. Absolutely beautiful. And drinks, you say? Drinks? What about drinks for the toasts? Well, yes, we've ordered more wine. This is Canary wine, because it's a golden and it's a bit sweeter than that Spanish wine. Not that I get to drink any of it, being a mere cook. You obviously understand this. And beer, we have finest ales for the men who want ale. And we have cider, and we have brandy. And of course we have our own fresh fruit wines that we've made from the fruits in our big orchards all the year, you know. So we've got a real good collection of drinks. And of course you have to have a wedding cake. Well, our ovens here have been so busy that the wedding cake was made by the cooks in the village. They made a layer each in their own ovens. And we've brought them here, and I've assembled it, and I've iced it with ivory-coloured almond icing, and it looks beautiful. And then there are candy flowers put on top of it, so that it looks wonderful. The whole table just looks wonderful.
Well, I could do with a pint of the Eagle now. I'm fed up with this. We've been digging this mine under the House of Lords for a month. Have you come to help digging? Yeah, we needn't bother. It's all changed. 2 years we've been at this on and off. First they were going to have Parliament last year, then there was the plague, then they delayed it, then the powder got wet. I'm fed up with the whole thing. Anyway, the good news is, Lord Percy, in with the money bags, has managed to hire a cellar right under the House of Lords. Well, how fortunate we could be. Mind you, I think it's a bit too lucky really, but still. So all you've got to do is move a ton of powder from here to there. Then all the ironwork from here to there, and then all the firewood to hide it all. Shouldn't take more than a couple of days. So we'll be ready by November the 5th. Mind you, Mrs. Herbert, my landlady, is getting suspicious because I have to keep rowing to and fro across the Thames with barrels and iron, and then row back with more barrels, and then throw it all away because it got spoiled, and do it all again. And so I've moved to Clements in Danes. If you see me around the streets, my name's John Johnson, not Guy Fawkes. Remember that, call me Guy Fawkes. No, I'm a dead man. That Lord Monteagle, he's a dodgy fella. I know he's supposed to be on our side, but I don't trust him. And he wrote a letter, which I'm sure would have got to the spy master by now, saying, all the Catholic lords don't come to the house when it opens. Well, that's a bit of a hint, I'd have thought, if I was a spy master, so I'm sure it would have got to the top by now. But I'm still here and we're still getting on with it. Catesby's persuaded us to carry on, and nothing's happened. Mind you, that's Monteagle I don't trust. I don't trust any of them. I don't trust Tresham. He's just come in late because we're running short of cash. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. November the 5th, we got there at last. Well, nothing's happened. It's all stacked, it's all ready to go. So what do I need? I need, oh, my back's killing me. It's all that gunpowder. My dark lantern, just to see where I'm up to. Slow match, oh yes. You have to keep it going. I think 15 minutes will be enough. Anyway, it'd be enough for me to get across the river and watch the fireworks. That'd be grand. You'd be surprised how easy it is to get gunpowder nowadays. It's a government monopoly. You'd think it'd be hard to get hold of. But of course, when he stopped all the wars, there was a great pile of gunpowder. It was everywhere. They couldn't get rid of it. And they're monopolies, so they wanted some money. So I just strolls up, says I'm a merchant having trouble with pirates off Morocco. How much do you want? I said a couple of ton. Be fine. Blowing them up with their own powder. There's a little joke there somewhere. Anyway, I thought it was quite funny at the time. But I'm still worried about being found out, because I'm standing here next to several tons of gunpowder and a big bonfire. But nothing's out of guards. Yeah, John Johnson. Worked for Percy, you know, Lord Percy, Earl of Northumberland. Yeah, we rent it legal like. Started last week, yeah. Oh God, I did that. They're pretty soft, those guards, I'll tell you. Hang on, they're coming back. Get off me, you rogues! No, I'm a legal man. I work for Lord Percy, I told you. Get off! Oh, they found the match and the lantern and the gunpowder. I'm a dead man.
Well, such a wonderful wedding it has been. Absolutely a wonderful wedding. All of the aristocracy of the area came. All of the relatives of Stephen Wright, except for one, his cousin Jack. That we've been told that Jack is on a secret errand down in London. We don't know any more, although they did say he was with that chap Guy Fawkes. They were at school together, you know, in St Peter's in York. They were good mates then. I gather they got into quite a lot of scrapes then in school. But yes, Jack's down in London, and so he couldn't be at the wedding. So we've got Stephen and his bride and all of their relatives, and of course all the master's relatives, they have to be here. Not to mention the nobles and aristocracy of this part of Yorkshire. Tables full of these people. And they've really enjoyed all the food that they've provided. They've been sitting, scoffing, eating and drinking and really celebrating. The father of the bride, he came to propose the toast to the bride and the groom, and everybody raised their glasses with their canary wine to toast the bride and the groom. And then the cake was brought in, looking beautiful there, with all this lovely icing and all the layers, all very tempting. And Jane came out to cut the cake. Smiles broad as anything on her face, looking so happy at the thought of being married to Stephen. So delighted was she with her wedding. And she was cutting the cake, and as she cut it, you could see inside the richness of it, of fruit and spices, the dark richness of this cake, ready to deliver to all of the guests at the wedding. Yes, it was wonderful. And then Jane was crowned with a circlet of flowers by Agnes and Dorothy Maud, two lovely little girls who came and put the flowers on her so that now she really did look like a queen. And then, of course, the musicians arrive, because what would a wedding be without the musicians to finish it off? They come. The fiddler comes first, then there's the lute player, a small harp, a guitar, a cittern, all of these wonderful instruments to play this wonderful music. And the dancing begins. Well, the dancing always begins with a farandole. And you may not know, but the farandole is a gentle dance where you dance in one line around, and you weave in and out, and you bow politely or curtsy to the top table as you go by. Oh yes. And of course this is a wonderful chance for the young men to eye up the young women. Oh yes, they can see them, they can look at them there, they can watch for any kind of glint in the young girl's eye that might give them a bit of encouragement. Such is the gentle farandole, which all of these events start with. Off we go into the farandole, and then of course, after that, we're into the more lively kind of dance. The kind of dance where you have groups and sets and you do stars and you go forward and back and, oh yes, the kind of dance that will go on all night if they choose to. And so this is the time when the musicians really strike up and play aloud for the dancing. Sometimes, people like me, these cooks who've been working for so long, well, I wonder if these guests have ever got homes to go to.
It's all gone awry. Damn Guy Fawkes, damn the King, damn Lord Monteagle, damn all of them. And even God seems to have damned us. We've been riding 3 days in the pouring rain. And have the Catholic lords in the Midlands risen to help us? Not a jot. So we're riding on, and I can't get away. There's nearly 60 of us in this group. I'm only a servant, I want to get away, I don't want to have anything to do, nothing to do with me. I've never been here, no nothing. And then what did they do? Steal horses from Warwick Castle. Well, you think the sheriff might notice that they stolen horses from Warwick Castle, and he did. And now there's 200 militiamen after us. So, Holbeach House is where we're off to. I don't think we've got a hope now. No hope at all. People are slipping away all the time, but I'm still stuck. And Catesby, he's so persuasive, people still think they might win through. I can't see how. With 200 militia coming, horses all around. And Holbeach House, it's made of brick. It's not even a castle, it's got big windows. It's got a wall round it, but it's not a fortress. It might be if you had 500 men and a cannon. Anyway, I never fight for the losing side, it's one of my rules. So I'll have to think of a way out of this mess. I'm sure they knew all about it. The militia couldn't have been raised that soon. Anyway, we've been betrayed. My master Jack hasn't paid me, so I may as well go. He's a good bloke, good with the sword, as I said, but I don't see how we can survive this. I'll go to the top of the house, up in the attic there. After all, it's where my room is. Lucky to have a room at all. I'm going to have nothing by tomorrow. There's a walled garden over there and a dovecot. Dovecots have holes in for the birds to fly in and out, and they're full of poop. And if I were going to hide, I think that's the place to be. It's also fairly solid. Not many places for bullets to come through. So as soon as it's dark, I think I'll slip away. Now, you wouldn't believe how stupid these people are. He may be a good orator, he may encourage people to die for the faith, but whoever heard of drying gunpowder in front of an open fire? We did manage to put most of the fire out. Poor Lord Digby was blinded. They're all black in the face. I tell you, as a professional soldier, they're a disgrace. I'm ashamed to be with them, and so I'm not going to be with them. So I'll slip off to the Dovecot, have a little rest, and see if I can slip away in the morning. Well, this looks like the morning. Sun's getting up. 250 militiamen, all muskets at the ready, all the way round. Not good. Not good, all this new movement. Lord Winter's come out. He didn't get 5 steps. Quarrel, a bolt from a crossbow, quite old-fashioned crossbow, not used so much nowadays, but they're actually easier to load and they're more accurate than a musket. Anyway, he's staggered back in. I don't think he's very well. Oh, here's Jack and Kit. Come on, Jack, you can do it. Swords at the ready. They didn't get 10 yards. That's very sad. He was a good master, as masters went. Oh well. Well, who's left? Just Catesby, Rockwood, Percy. Catesby and Percy have come out together. Shot dead with 1 bullet. That's quite impressive. Quite unusual. I've not seen that myself that often. Catesby's not quite dead. He's gone off. He's grabbing a cross. He's making a real martyrdom scene. He was always wanted to be a martyr. I mean, the whole idea was stupid from beginning to end. And I'll just lie low here for a bit. See if I can slip away into the woods. Me? No, down with popery, that's what I say. No, just a servant. I've never been here before. No, I know nothing about it. Honest, look at these wounds. I got them at the siege of Newport, fighting for the Protestant Dutch. Yes, London, never been there. Is it a big place? Is it as big as Antwerp?
What a disaster November the 5th turned out to be. Well, apart from our splendid wedding, of course. What a disaster. The news reached us very quickly. Surprising how fast news can travel when it's of such a disaster. Stephen Wright and his new bride and his family, they were just completely distraught when they heard of what had happened to Jack out there in that house, Holbeach House in Staffordshire. Oh dear, they were distraught, crying, heartbroken. Poor family, poor Jack. But at least he was spared. He died quickly with a bullet. Even though knowing that his head was put on a stake in London wasn't quite so good, really. But still, at least he died quickly. Unlike those that were taken prisoner, the rest of them that were taken prisoner by all these people, taken back. I mean, Guy Fawkes had a long interview with King James. He was put to a bit of torture to reveal what had happened. I think, yes, they do say that. But then they were all tried, and they were all found guilty of high treason. And as I'm sure you know, the punishment for high treason is not good. And this is something you may wish to cover up your ears for. Right? You are hanged until you are half dead. Then your genitals cut off and burned in front of you. And your bowels and heart are removed. And your limbs you're dismembered. And you're put out on public display for the birds to eat. So this is not a punishment that anyone would choose. I do believe I have heard that Guy Fawkes somehow managed to escape this terrible punishment, but died anyway. So, there we are. What fools they were to think that they could possibly have got away with it. How did they think they could do that? They did so many stupid things. And this is what happened to them. Well, as for us Catholics, of course, well, life kind of goes on. But there are new laws, we can't vote, we can't join the army, not that that's any great loss really. There are all sorts of things we can't do, and priests will be removed very rapidly. The occasional priest manages to hide in a priest hole where there's one in the house. But we have to keep ourselves very calm. No, it was the Jesuits that James went for most. But in fact, we just keep our heads down. We don't do anything to disturb anything at all. And so, somehow, this is how life then goes on.
All that was over 400 years ago, very much like it is today in Was. Go and enjoy your virtual fireworks, for I, as King James the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, never-ending, decreed.